Hi there. We are starting day 2 of the Anderson Island Artist Studio Tour. My name is Belen Bilgich, and I am a wildlife photographer. And I wanted to give you guys a behind the scenes look at just how something like this comes together. I had only previously done 2 art shows with a handful of entries. I'd never done a studio tour before, much less produced and tried to display so much of what I do as a wildlife photographer. And I thought many of you might be curious, who are photographers yourself, how do you go about pulling off something like this? So my first answer was, it seemed weird for people to walk through my home where what I do is point a big camera at things outside and then put them on my computer and post-produce and do all of my processing there. It didn't really seem like that would be a fun thing to watch, much less have 2 days of people looking at. But what I do have is a woodland magic themed garden that is kind of a perfect place to display all of my art and show how I end up with some of the wildlife in my immediate living space that I have. So that's what I started with, was just this idea that I wanted to set the show outside, and then think about how do I tell the story of what I do. And I didn't focus so much on how I do it, but just the naturalist, birder, knowledge area sort of the side of it. So the first thing I did was I sort of looked around my space and asked myself, where could I place things? What made sense as far as the paths that we had and the flow of people walking through this space? And getting a chance to enjoy the gardens and also the art and feeling like they weren't on top of each other or crowded into tight spaces. So I started with a list of what I thought I could display. And then, this is where I show you that I'm not an artist. I rough sketched just some very rough ideas about where I could put art in the garden with rough sketches of the landscaping. It really helped me think through what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it and where I would spread things out and what the flow of traffic would look like. So that was one big key step. And I did that about 6 weeks before the show so that I could start to think about what art did I need to order, what media did I need to prepare, and what was I going to do to even place all of this, because I certainly didn't have 8 easels just hanging around. So I had to think about where was I going to get all the things to help me display what I was going to try to show off. So let me start at the beginning of the tour when people walk in, and I'll sort of step you through what choices I made and how I did it. So I live on a cul-de-sac, all by myself in this house. And the first question was, how are we going to help wrangle parking? So with some sidewalk chalk and creativity, we created some parking spaces. And then we thought about when people walk up to the house, what's that experience going to look like? So what I wanted to do was use the carport as sort of a mini gallery. And one of the things I did to minimize costs is I had a whole bunch of prints of my photography that I put up in my house in frames. And I flipped through those first to see what of our collection that we had on hand I could put in nice 8x10 frames that were matted. For display. And that saved me a chunk of money. About 2/3 of the prints hanging inside of the carport were just from our collection at home, so I didn't actually have to come out of pocket to produce those, though I did have to buy the frames. I'll come back to that. So I started with one of these beautiful thin wraps from Bay Photo. They're the ones that I use to produce all of my work. And they're photo paper, sometimes metallic photo paper that wraps around a mounting board and has some really nice mounting brackets on the back. And I really love the no frame finish that they have. So I took and put one of those up front. One of the things I thought about was I didn't want to produce sizes that were so enormous that people felt like they didn't have wall space for it. And I wanted to be able to give people price points that they could actually afford to pick up if they wanted to. It's an amazing thing to see giant pieces of your own art, but it's not always practical to sell those in any sort of hurry. And since I'm not showing in any galleries at the moment, I wanted to make sure that this was an affordable experience for people and that they could look at it and think, I could see that on my wall, not, my goodness, where would I put that? So that choice went into a lot of my selection for how I picked the sizes for these. The next thing I did with everything that was hanging was I went ahead and created placards that told a brief story of what the photo was about and where it was. I really feel like with wildlife photography in particular, the story is really important, and where it's taken sometimes helps people connect to the idea that this is in their neighborhood and that they want to have that on their wall because of it. So I feel like telling the story in this way really helps people connect more to the art, makes them feel more of what I felt when I was taking the pictures. So I went ahead and made these for everything that was hanging. Lighting is a little less than ideal, but when people's eyes adjust, it seems to be that they do all right under the carport, and everyone seems to love the shade that it offers, which is nice. I did throw in some just nature photography in addition to the wildlife. Again, labeling them so that people could see. I also had a friend who said some amazing things about what my photography meant to her. And I wanted to include that quote because I felt like it was an important part of what I do, and I felt like she really nailed what I am always trying to do with sharing my photography with people. Just to help people see that this is right here in front of them. All they've got to do is take the time to look. I also thought about how can I add multimedia elements to just give people a better sampling of what I do. So I've got one monitor set up just on a rotation through about 150 pictures that I picked to show as part of this and what I do. It's just on a loop and it rotates for about 3 minutes and then resets. And people are really stopping and looking at this. They seem to enjoy being able to have a quick slideshow of other examples of what I've done. Also, as you're walking in, I wanted to encourage people to walk along our paths. So what I did was I positioned one of the pieces of art down here by our pond, which really kind of draws people down into this space. And excuse the glare, really nice big print of some oyster mushrooms. Again, with a nice explanation up there at the top. And as they walk around, they can look down and see the koi and see all of the fun stuff that we've got going on. And at this point, they can either go and walk around the back side of the garden, or they can come back up and around into the underdecking for the rest of the hanging gallery. And then the next element that I added for media, I have a trail camera that is on a stream between two of our ponds that's actually right behind this monitor here, kind of under that tripod. And I've edited a lot of this video because I wanted my local folks on Anderson Island to see all the different species that this camera is catching. I was very surprised at the 25 species so far that are just showing up in my backyard that I certainly easily half of them had never seen with my eyes. So it's kind of a neat secret camera, hidden camera experience to just get to see what birds do when nobody else is around. And I thought it was important to be able to tell the story here too. So I created placards that sort of gave people a sense of what they were looking at if it required an explanation. I thought this was kind of a fun one for people to see. It was also really nice because this show is a little bit different. I was able to pull in some of my photos from Austin and Utah and other places rather than just being island photos. Also, quick foodie hack. I wanted to serve some refreshments, but I didn't really want to have to spend a lot of time baking cookies or anything like that. So I got some basket infusers to throw in some pitchers and made basil orange and mint lemon infused water. It's been a pretty big hit so far, and just a fun, easy way to offer people a break. Ooh, missed one. And then one of the other things that I did, lots of people don't have wall space. I know I really don't at my house. So I try to think about how can I create things that allow people to take some of the art home in a more practical way. So I do have 8x10 prints for sale. But this year I actually did some 252 piece puzzles. Thought that could be kind of a fun idea. One of my favorite things is the 6x6 trivets that can be used with hot pans and hot pots on a table, both functional and really fun, and they really take a beating, so you shouldn't be afraid to use them. They're really functional art. I've got some greeting cards that have descriptions on the back. I also have some Island Time journals. So what this is these are collections of wildlife photography and nature photography from the island. And I figured, again, this is another way that people can enjoy the photos without having to hang something on their wall. So having lined journals with photos from the island has been a really nice thing. People have loved giving them as gifts and keeping them for themselves. This year I just released volume 2, so that's now for sale, which I'm really excited about. I also did some magnets, which have been pretty popular, little 2x2 magnets, and some accordion books that just kind of tell the story of an eagle family that we knew on the island and have been tracking with their story and photos of them. It's a magnetic cover, so it automatically closes itself. It's pretty fun. And the same thing for our crow family down at Andes Beach. We watched their 5 babies grow up last year. One more picture in the gallery. Sorry for all this glare. All right, so coming out of the carport, we draw people into the garden, over the bridge and through the woods. And this is where I've got most of the really nice thin wrap art. It catches the sun. This is on metallic photo paper, so it's really got an amazing sheen on it that the sunlight brings out. It makes the highlights really pop. And again, everything is labeled. Altogether, there's 7 pieces of art spread throughout the garden, so it really encourages people to walk through and pause and take their time and look around and enjoy, reading the blurbs without feeling like other people are right on their heels or trying to get in to see as well. The third thing that I set up is a multimedia. Well, it's a live presentation that I did for the Johnson Farm Historical Society in 2017. I took all my photos and I basically put together a presentation of what birds you would see at the Johnson Farm. And it was super fun. It was the first time I'd ever done a presentation like this, and there was a big crowd and everybody really geeked out with me, and it was really fun. I just did another presentation in January of birds of Andes Marine Park, and I hope to redo that one and actually get a recorded presentation of that again at some point. I really enjoy doing these kinds of talks. Most of the reason wildlife photography is exciting to me is because it has made me a naturalist, and that makes me want to teach out and share everything that I see with others. So I've got this going on a loop. It's a 45-minute presentation, and people have been coming and just sitting and watching for 5 minutes and then getting up and wandering around, which is exactly what I had hoped would happen. I also thought it would be interesting to share the story of how I became a photographer. It's not my full-time trade. I do something else to make the money, but this is what I love, and it uses a lot of my existing skills. So I kind of told the story of how it happened, and every year my husband and I collaborate to pick our favorite top 50 photos of each photography year. And I make a book out of them. So while these aren't for sale, I brought them out so that people could flip through them and just see what my journey as a photographer for the last 6.5 years has looked like. Another thin wrap on metallic paper. Look at that cute face. And then set up a little explanation of the writing journals, and gave people a chance to just have a stack where they could stand here and flip through them. Reminding people that I accept cash and credit cards. And offering a free birding calendar as well, just so people can pick up and get engaged. And promoting my Wild Child Tales naturalist blog as well, so people could take free flyers. So to finish up the tour, sort of the really special pieces I put down the center path. This alligator is one of my favorites. I just took it this last spring. And National Geographic's online community, Your Shot editors actually recognized it as a picture of the week. We were in Louisiana at the Barataria Preserve, which is in the John Lafitte National Historical Park, so it's a federal park. What a handsome boy. And then just a hilarious picture of a barn swallow sitting on top of chicken coop number 2. False labeling. And that guy is Acosta's hummingbird, who is in a very small region of the United States in Northern California, Arizona, and Utah. I'm lucky that my in-laws live there and I get to see these guys every year. So there's a few things to know in setting this up. A lot of the media and things that I chose to display are things that I've been working on over time. I didn't just magically snap my fingers and have them ready for this show, which helped me a lot in pulling everything together. It would have been very difficult to put all of this together at the last minute. I started about 6 weeks out and did all of my planning steps, as I mentioned, and then kept an eye out on Bay Photo for when they were having 20% off specials on things that I knew I would need to order so that I could save some money as I was stocking up for the show. I ended up ordering 9 thin wrap pieces and a chunk of prints and some other products to be able to fill in the supply for sale. And then spent time preparing all of that. Obviously the signage all had to be written and then printed and prepared and produced. It's not complicated, but it takes time and it takes some thought. I really like to tell the story of what's going on and offer explanations, because in a show like this, when 20 people show up at once, you don't have time to be in 6 spots telling the story again and again. Plus, I'd lose my voice if I did that. So I did everything I could to make it a self-exploring experience. And I think that really helped. I feel like people walked away with a much bigger sense of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it just by using those signs. There's also a few other tricks. I'm going to go back to the carport and show you the frames, because I think that they are also pretty special. So you're getting a lot of reflection, which again I apologize for, but these frames I ordered on Amazon from a company that I order all of my 2mm foam backings and sleeves for my 8x10s to package them. So they're an art supply company, not a fly-by-night, don't care about quality sort of place. And for 12 frames purchased at once, they had a package that turned out to be about $11 a frame. I've been really happy with the quality of these frames. They have good weight to them. The backs have a really nice clasp on them. The hooks hang solidly. They've taken a pretty good beating going up and down every day and being put away, and the corners seem to hold, and they don't seem to show any kind of wear. As someone who pretty constantly needs to frame and mat things for people, the $11 price tag really makes it easy for me to get art into a beautiful, solid quality frame and still be able to sell it at a decent price. I'll put the URL up for this particular product because I think people should know about it. I was really happy with the quality, and it definitely made my show look a lot more professional.
So all in all, it's been a great, amazing experience to do this. I've already got ideas for how I want to do it next year. And I think for anybody looking to do something similar, I think that you should give it a shot, but start early. Think about the experience that you want to create. Don't be afraid to ask friends. All of these easels came from me asking people in my community if they had easels, asking friends if they had easels. Crowdsourcing supplies for a show like this definitely takes the financial stress off and helps people help you, which is always fun. I really enjoyed setting it up in my garden space because it meant that I had an opportunity to share a space that I love that is a big attraction for the wildlife that I photograph. And I think that I would really enjoy sharing even more of this kind of stuff. I'm probably going to start looking for opportunities to maybe curate some collections for galleries or other things. It's really kind of launched me into a new mindset about this, which is exciting. Anyway, thanks for the behind the scenes tour with me. It was fun to share it with you, and good luck.